The spectacular seven. What this spectacular seven is, if you notice the diagram, it's in like a pyramid, and in a pyramid shape, meaning that you're starting from the top and you're working your way down, as they say, till the rubber hits the road. What they mean by that is, in a car, there are things that are like hypothetical, the airbags and stuff like that. But there's one part of your car that deals with all the friction, and that is the tires. That's what the tires are so important. They're more important than your stereo system. They're more important. They're some of the most important, because that's really where it gets down to taking all of this and putting into implementation. So this works down backward, so you're going down the list. And I'll explain each one, inshallah ta'ala. And at the bottom are action plans. So you take your vision and you break it down into exactly how to implement this today, right now, inshallah. Before I moved to Canada, as it says, their RPM action plan, that's the management tool I was using. I made a RPM action plan for Al-Maghrib Institute to turn it into a system rather than a one-man show with Muhammad al-Sharif. And alhamdulillah, I was successful. And then I moved out of the US, moved to Canada. When I moved to Canada, there was no work for me to do. Like everything, I had just automated everything, and now I was at the position that I told you about, where you've pancaked everything, and now you're dealing with this big void, like going into a house and there's nothing in it. And you know what happens when that takes place? You become sad. Meaning that if you imagine your goals as a mountain and you're trying to reach this mountain, I'm telling you that it's when you reach. Remember I said that if you have a Pac-Man or something, I'm like, be happy because you have some goals to aim for. But once you reach the top of the mountain, some of those goals you've been aiming for since you were a child. So some people, for example, their goal might be a certain type of car. They want to drive a BMW. How long have they had this goal? Since they were 5 years old, they want to drive a BMW. They achieved this goal at age 30. So they've had this goal for 25 years, and now they got it, and about 1 week after they purchased it, it's not a big deal anymore. And now they had all that years to build up desire for this goal. Now what other goal do they replace it with? So someone said, well, then you get a Porsche. Like, it doesn't make sense, right? They always wanted a BMW, now they want a Porsche. It just doesn't work. And so they become sad because they have no more goals. So anyways, if you still have some goals to aim for, congratulations, alhamdulillah. I'm telling you, after you achieve your goals or you start to achieve it, you've got to build some more goals. You have to. Otherwise, you're just going down a depression mountain and sadness. And actually, the depression and sadness is like an alarm clock telling you, dude, you need to get some goals. Life isn't over. Life isn't about you sitting in an empty house, a big 15-bedroom house, and just vegetating. Right? That's not what life is about. Your body is telling you, go back to work, go get some more goals, and keep achieving. And keep moving forward, being balanced. I'm not saying just achieving your career. I'm talking about in every aspect of your life. After all these years working on your finances or career, why don't you start focusing on your family? Or the opposite. Maybe someone's been focusing on their family so much, maybe there's a dawah project that they would like to get involved in and really build it, some dreams that they had, even though, things have been flattened. Anyhow, so you want to start off with your ultimate vision. Ultimate vision is your point B, which is where are you headed to. You have to know that. As I give the example of me lost in Chicago, I can't get anywhere unless I know where I'm going. But ultimate vision is not a specific like short-term destinations, like ultimately where do you want to go. So a person might say, ultimately I want to be a Nobel Prize winning doctor, for example. Ultimately, that's what my ultimate vision is. Or someone else will say, I want to end world poverty. Or someone will say, I'd like to find a cure for polio. Or something like that, right? I'm giving you some medicine. Maybe in another career, my ultimate vision, a person might say, is to go around the country doing dawah or something like that and not have to worry about finances. Some ultimate vision that a person has, depending on the slice. And so each of these slices will have an ultimate vision. Some of them kind of go together, but in general, you can kind of like have an ultimate vision for your family, an ultimate vision for your children, ultimate vision, so on. When I moved to Canada, like I said, there was just this emptiness. I decided that what, I've got to choose some new goals. I went out into a park near Canada, and it was in winter time. And I took my notes, and I basically would stand up, staring like at the forest, and freeze. It was so cold, right? And I remember even like after I'd envisioned and I get an idea of what I want, then I'd sit down to write, and my pen had like frozen up, and my fingers were numb and stuff like that. And I remember at one point I was there. I spent 2 weeks doing this. 2 weeks. Like we're just here for today, right? I spent 2 weeks in the freezing cold just on this point here. And I wrote out a whole vision, a whole plan. And it's interesting that what you're seeing here, Discover You, like I could show you notes from back then. That it was already there. I'd already seen it before, and then you're just moving towards it. In life, you're just moving towards it. So at one point, I just sat down, and I was like, you know, there's nobody at the park. This is like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's like freezing cold. Who's standing in a park? Except Muhammad Sharif. So I'm like, this is crazy, man. It's freezing cold. What am I doing spending 2 weeks doing this stuff? And then I thought to myself, and I said, like, nobody does this. And I thought about it, and I said, nobody does it. I go, that's awesome. Nobody else does it, and that's why they will be my slaves. Not like that, not like that. But one person is spending their life watching TV. The other person is planning to own the TV station. Okay? That's what I mean, like someone else is going to be like at the mercy. The people who don't plan are the ones who are forced to live someone else's dream. Right? And, you know, whether they like it or they don't like it, that's just the way it is. Someone else had taken extra time to plan and do things. Someone else decided, you know what, I'm just going to take life as it comes. And those are the people that just kind of like get manipulated and moved around. So you want to get an ultimate vision. After you get your ultimate vision, right, so you say, for example, let's do finances. Finance is easy to do. A person says, my ultimate vision is to make $1 million. Okay? Some people billion, but let's just say million for now. Their ultimate vision is, okay, great. What are the chances of you making $1 million just because you said that's my vision? Okay, 0. I don't know if it's 0, but at least you got some specific. You have a number. It has 7 digits. Okay, so you're in the millionaire category. That's your ultimate vision. Here's something interesting. If you had 2 buildings in some windy city like Chicago, and one building to the next building is about 50 feet, and we put a wooden plank across the 2 buildings. Okay, wooden plank. These buildings, you would say, are about 80 stories high. And there's a wooden plank going out, and Chicago is the windy city. And I said it's 50 meters across, right? So imagine just looking down on the 80th floor, 80, if you've ever gone up to the CN Tower, and as you're climbing up, you're like, dang, this is high. Okay? Imagine walking outside. Then, I'd say to you that if you cross and you survive, and the wind doesn't just blow you or anything, and by the way, there's gusts up to this and that, if you walk across this plank and you go off, I'll give you $1 million. Would you do it? Anybody do it? Would you do it? Nobody? I don't even have $1 million to give you, but now let me change it. On the other side, let's imagine this. On the other side of the plank are your family members. If you don't cross successfully, they will die. Who's willing to cross now? Okay? Some people are still not willing to cross. They're like, let them die. I might die. I can't kill myself. Okay? So now, if you'll notice, what you just experienced there was a change in purpose. When you tell people that, and even when I think about now, when I look back, when someone says, I want to do this so I can be financially free, I'm like, you're full of it, man. Because that's just a bunch of just talk. Just a bunch of talk. People say, I want this amount of money. Because just because you have your vision, what's more important than the vision is purpose, and rarely do people spend time on purpose. Why do you want to do this? So for example, a person going on a diet, they fail, not because they didn't have a vision. They did have a vision. They keep seeing the vision on magazine covers everywhere. They see the vision. They don't have purpose. Their purpose is so I can wear the dress that I wore when I was in high school. Okay, great purpose. Like, that's really going to motivate you. It doesn't do anything. Maybe when they actually do it, they're happy, and that's all fine and dandy. But purpose is like doctor telling you that you have cancer. That's purpose, right? I would say also, another way of purpose is the irresponsible lifestyle. If, for example, a husband was, may Allah forgive them, but suppose they drove very fast and they drove very dangerously. They got like 5 children, and this person is always trying to cut people off and so on and so forth. And then the husband gets into a car accident and 2 of his children die, and he dies, leaving a wife and maybe like 3 other kids. Was that irresponsible? He was going to die, he's going to die, it's written, but they're acting in an irresponsible way. It's even when you look at the legacy, like it didn't have to be like that. And so people with their health, they might kill themselves early, and as subhanAllah, the bad example that they give to their children, the lifestyle that their children are learning from the parents, all the happiness that is drained out because the person has no energy. And that's why I say that where the family dies. So that's giving a little different glimpse of health purpose, ultimate purpose. It's different than so that I can weigh or I can fit in this type of clothing and so on. So your purpose, more important than your vision, and rarely do people spend time on it. Sometimes when I'm in the car and there might be a slice of my life I need to work on, I will spend, kind of like my empty time thinking of what would be a great purpose for this slice of my life. And I would just start thinking about, would this be a purpose? And then you can do that walking across the buildings. Would you walk across for a purpose like that? If you say no way, then okay, it's not the right purpose. Keep moving to another purpose. Keep moving to another purpose. Put that analogy, would you cross for a purpose like this? Does it mean that much to you? And when it does mean that much to you, then once that locks in, your problem is solved. You'll do it. Okay? The next part of this spectacular 7 is called roles. What's meant by roles is sometimes people, it's like their identity, right? So someone will say, for example, if they're a teacher, they'll say, I'm a disciplinarian. Or, what's your role at your school? What would you call yourself? You're a designer? Is that what you would call yourself? What would you call yourself? A hardware system designer. Anything else? Any descriptive things? What do you do? What kind of person are you? I'm a hardware system. Does that excite you? Hardware systems designer? It does? Okay, good job. Okay. If you start getting into descriptions, I'll give you this example. When it comes to money, when it comes to the issue of money, a person could say, this was like something that I had thought up as a role. The Prophet ﷺ said, there's a hadith that says, نِعْمَ الْمَالُ الصَّالِحُ لِلرَّجُلُ الصَّالِحُ, right? That what blessed wealth for a righteous man. So if a person's righteous, then the more money they have, the more good they can do with that money. So it became like a role that I was like aiming for. And I was playing this video game that dealt with like finances and stock market and things like that. And you get to put your name into the game. So I put my name as A. Rajul Salih. Rajul Rajul Salih Salih. And then it says, it's your turn. A Rajul Salih, right? So I was trying to get that in. I'm like, yeah, Rajul Salih. The more money I make, the more I can help. The more money I make, the more money I can help, right? And then you have the example of Batman as well. Very wealthy and is able to do a lot of good things.